How's your workflow been lately?
It has been pretty good, Jerry. I've been using Asana to manage my tasks and Git for version control. How about you?
Yeah, same here. I've also been using Visual Studio Code and PHPStorm for coding and BitBucket for code repository. What kind of tasks do you usually work on?
Well, lately I've been doing a lot of front-end work, building out new features for our web app. What about you?
Mostly back-end stuff, working on APIs and integrating with other services. It's been a challenge, but also really interesting.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes I have trouble figuring out how to approach a task, especially if it is something I haven't done before.
Yeah, same here. What I usually do is break the task down into smaller pieces, and try to tackle each piece one at a time.
That is a good approach. I usually do something similar, but I also like to do some research to see if there are any existing solutions or libraries that can help me.
Definitely. It's always good to see what others have done and learn from their experiences. Speaking of which, what programming languages have you been working with lately?
Mostly JavaScript and CSS, with some PHP thrown in there. You?
Mostly Python and Java, with a little bit of C++ on the side. I've also been experimenting with some new languages like Rust and Go.
Oh, cool. I've been meaning to try Rust myself, but haven't had the chance yet. So, how did you get your current job?
I actually got it through a recruiter. They reached out to me on LinkedIn, and after a few rounds of interviews, I got the offer.
Nice. I got my job through a referral from a friend who worked at the company. The interview process was pretty tough, but I am glad I made it through.
Yeah, the interview process can be nerve-wracking, but it's always worth it in the end. It's good to work at a place where you can learn and grow as a developer.
Definitely. So, how do you approach tasks that you're not familiar with?
Well, first I try to understand what the task is asking for and what the end goal is. Then I do some research to see what other people have done and what kind of solutions are out there. Finally, I try to break the task down into smaller pieces and tackle each one step by step.
That makes sense. I usually do something similar. I like to look for existing solutions first and see if I can build on top of them. If not, then I'll try to break the task down into smaller pieces and work on each one individually.
Yeah, it's always good to have a plan and break things down into manageable chunks. What kind of problems have you run into lately?
Well, I had a problem with one of our APIs recently. It wasn't returning the data I expected, and I couldn't figure out why. After doing some debugging and looking at the API code, I realized that there was a mistake in how the data was being formatted on the server side. Once I fixed that, everything started working as expected.
Ah, I've had similar problems before. It can be frustrating, but it's always satisfying when you finally figure out the solution. One thing I like to do is talk through the problem with a colleague or mentor. Sometimes just explaining the issue to someone else can help you see things from a different perspective and come up with a solution.
That is a good point. I'll have to try that next time I run into a problem. Speaking of which, have you ever worked with any of the apps we used before, like Asana or Git?
Yeah, I've used them all before. They're pretty common tools in the industry. Asana is great for task management and keeping track of what needs to be done. Git is essential for version control and collaborating with other developers.
Definitely. I've found Git to be especially helpful when working on a team. It allows us to make changes and see what others have done without stepping on each other's toes.
Exactly. And it also provides a history of changes, so you can see who did what and when. It's invaluable for debugging and troubleshooting issues.
For sure. Well, it has been great talking with you, Jerry. I've got to get back to work now, but let us catch up again soon.
Sounds good, Sam. Keep up the good work, and don't hesitate to reach out if you need any help with anything.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Talk to you later.